Redevelopment Agency and Redevelopment Successor Agency and Financing Authority. We're going to begin tonight, as we do each week, with the Pledge of Allegiance. We'd like to invite the public to join the council and staff in the pledge, which tonight will be led by Ms. Mona Ibrahimi.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let me just note, Councilmember Ledesma is out of the city this evening on professional business for his employer, so he will not be with us. He will be at our next meeting. The council did meet in, in closed session this evening to confer with our real property negotiator regarding property that is identified in the closed session agenda or under item 3, to confer with our legal counsel regarding exposure to litigation, and approval to initiate or intervene in an action. No action was taken. And to confer with our labor negotiator regarding approval of an agreement, negotiations with Local 522, the firefighters. No action was taken. With that, we're going to move to item 1A, which is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the City Council. This is noted in our agendas. The Council is not permitted under state law to take up or have a discussion about items that are brought up under 1A, but it is an important opportunity for a public forum. We do ask that anyone wishing to address this or any other agenda item this evening to please fill out one of the yellow cards that's available at the front door and turn it into the city clerk. In front of the clerk is a timer that we use to make sure that everyone gets the chance to be heard, and to that end we ask that all comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. We also recognize that for some folks, speaking in public can cause some anxiety, so we ask that there not be any boos or catcalls or applause or other demonstrations, and that we maintain a civil discourse in the chambers. So with that, we have one request to speak under item 1A, and it's by Mr. Bill Lowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. William Lowell of West Sacramento for the record. 2 or 3 items come to mind here, and I know I mentioned it a couple of meetings ago about the drinking water causing me to be thirstier all the time, and I noticed the drinking water that I drink when I go to the fast food places, it doesn't cause that. So I'm convinced that we have too much fluoride in our drinking water, and I was thinking, hey, why can't we just reduce that level to where it's drinkable? It doesn't leave us thirsty, and maybe there's a better way of doing that. And those of us that want more fluoride in our diet, if you will, maybe we can just have a little bit of toothpaste to fill that need. And I'm thinking about these overcrowded buses on YOLO bus, especially the number 42 that was mentioned at Monday night's meeting, and there again, I think that gives more argument to reroute a couple of number 45 expresses by way of West Sac and Davis, rather than just express between Woodland and downtown Sacramento, because, like I said before, 2 of those 5 are usually totally empty, and I think we could better utilize them and allow people more people to sit down while they're riding, but allow the buses to have a better chance of getting between here and Woodland on time. And we need to get with our people who manufacture the buses and the light rail cars so that we can have more flexible seating. And finally, on item number 8, on Monday night's YOLO bus meeting, it made reference to loss of K through 8 school bus transportation. And yesterday I was talking to the Washington Unified School District office, and they said that word loss should be change. So they're changing the routes. They didn't lose any bus service. Now there might have been a net reduction, but just to make sure it's not a total loss of the K through 8 bus service. Thank you.
That's the only request we have under item 1A, so we're going to proceed to item 1B. Are there any reports or other communications this evening? Mr. Christoph.
Yes. Last Thursday, the West Sacramento JPA met, Reclamation District 900, RD 537 in the city of West Sacramento. Really, the only thing of consequence was the engineering firms are continuing to analyze Reaches F and Reach B. And some pretty good news. In Reach B, we think that there is a way to shorten the footprint as far as setback levy is concerned. And at the same time, we probably can save maybe three of the homes that were in that, those folks were certainly afraid that we would take their homes also, and it looks like we may be able to save those homes, and they seem to be very, very appreciative, and so that was some pretty good news. So we will continue to move forward on it. It looks like September, maybe October is when the final decision will come down as far as Reach B is concerned, and Reach F. Reach F is very, very challenging because of what's underneath the ground in the sand, and trying to find that clay is just way, way too deep. It's down well over 180 feet, and people, nobody has gone that far down, as far as nobody in the United States has gone that far down with a slurry wall. So anyway, but we're looking at all options, and if we can find any others, we certainly will bring them back to the council, and we'll try to do the best job we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christoph. Mayor Pro Tem Villegas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Yolo County Transportation District met Monday, August 13th, and just a couple things. Was alluded to in public testimony earlier. The Yolo County Transportation District, albeit it's a public transportation district, they are continuing to have conversations with Washington Unified in case there's a need to support transportation for the CAIG system, which has been eliminated. There's not a lot that can be done, but they're certainly continuing to have dialogue to see if there's anything that can be done that's needed. And then 2 weeks ago, I think it was, the Yolo County Transportation District unveiled its new headquarters, and let's see, that's it.
Okay, for SACOG, we had a Transportation Committee meeting earlier in the month, and tomorrow's the board meeting. We'll be releasing the first, for public release, the RENA allocations, excuse me, for each of the jurisdictions in the region, and just, I know everyone on the council is aware, but those RENA allocations are essentially assignments to each of the cities and counties in the region for what we are expected to provide for in terms of additional housing units. We're not required to build them under the law, but we are required to plan and zone for that number of units. This is the first RENA since the last Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which was itself built on the blueprint, and so it is rather than the old methodology that used to sort of just take everybody's existing thing and then adjust it by the same percentage across the entire region, despite the fact that we were growing markedly faster than Davis, for example. The new version of RENA adjusts for what we actually are projecting and trying to drive growth to where we're trying to drive it to occur. And so, just as an example, for the total growth projection under these RENA allocations up through to 2021 for Yolo County would be just over 11,000 new additional units, of which almost 6,000 would be here in West Sacramento. So that's out of a total in the whole region of about 105,000 units. So we would be essentially responsible for just under 6% of all the new units in the region over the next 9 years. That part is usually not terribly controversial except in Davis and Loomis. But the aspect of RENA that generally generates a lot of debate and behind-the-scenes wrangling at SACOG is the allocations based on income categories of housing that is affordable to households that are very low income, or moderate income. And the council's aware we've struggled with many others in the region about this issue since incorporation, trying to have a formula that better accounted for the fact that we already have a larger proportion, and so when you just apply a percentage to the existing proportions, it sort of it cascades into a cycle of a larger and larger share of the regional population of low and moderate and very low income housing units. And we've pushed for some changes to the methodology, and those are in the new format. And so, just as an example of those, of those nearly 6,000 units that we would be responsible for, about 37% of them would be anticipated to be low or very low income. Now, remember, these are not affordable housing covenanted units. These are just So the definition of low and very low is based on a series of other criteria like density and that sort of thing that are part of that calculation, but about 37%. On the other hand, the city of let me pick another. Elk Grove would be 47% of their units would be projected to be low and very low under this methodology. Folsom is 45%, and Placer County as a whole is at 45%, and all the jurisdictions except for Colfax being over 40%. So those adjustments have been made. I mean, we've pushed very hard on this issue along with the city of Sacramento and Woodland and Yuba and Sutter and other jurisdictions in the region in order to try to get to this point. So it's and of course it's not perfect. We would, if we had control of the dial, we might turn it even a little bit more. But it's a significant improvement over the way that RENA used to be done. So that's going to be our main issue at the moment. All right, if there's no other reports or communications, we don't have any appointments this evening. So item 1, so that we'll proceed to item 2 through 4, which is the consent agenda. Are there any items on consent any member wishes to remove, or any item for separate question or comment? All right, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Villegas and seconded by Mr. Johannesson. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The consent agenda is adopted. Item 5, it's consideration of first reading of ordinance 12-8, amending Chapter 8.11 of the West Sacramento Municipal Code regarding alarm permits and regulations.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We're back tonight for a second appearance before you to discuss the first reading of ordinance 12-8 regarding the city's alarm program, and to present additional information requested during the workshop that was conducted on June 6th. Subsequent research and analysis has been conducted, and the results show that 3,186 false alarms that occurred last year. Of those, 2,247, or roughly 2/3 of the false alarms, were commercial calls, and 936, or about 1/3 of the calls, were residential. Of the 936 residential false alarms, 66% were first-time calls, 22% were second alarm calls, and 14% were third alarm calls or higher. With regards to the commercial false alarms, only 27% were first alarm calls, 16% were second alarm calls, and 57% were third time calls or higher. So this is where we're applying the bulk of the resources there. This is why we recommend that fines begin on a second false alarm rather than a third. And an annual permit would allow the police department's computer-aided dispatch system to contain the most up-to-date and relevant information about the alarm user system, and updated contact information, officer safety issues, large dog in the backyard, etc. And other than the proposed changes to the permit requirements and the penalty provisions, the requested ordinance revisions are primarily updates to outdated and irrelevant terminology. And we're prepared to answer any questions at this time.
Any other questions? Mr. Kristoff?
Yeah. On your proposed penalty provisions, first, second, third, over what period of time?
Over a 1-year period.
Over a 1-year period, and then it
Yes.
starts back?
Correct.
Okay. I guess one of the areas that I am concerned with, and that would be people that now have an alarm would have to go through a alarm permit process.
Correct.
You know, they've had an alarm for a number of years, and more than likely, those alarms are tied to a call center, and then the call center in turn calls our police department or whatever it is. Personally, I don't like the idea of having a $35 permit for somebody that has an alarm. You want to go ahead and charge them for the penalties or for false alarms and that sort of thing. I think that what you've outlined here is good. I think that's passable. I don't have any problem with it. But just to hit somebody every year with a $35 permit, I think is a little bit excessive. That's just a whole brand new tax. These people have never factored that into anything when they went to purchase an alarm. If it's going to be for new alarms, then I would say, hey, that's something that can be factored in, and then all the alarm companies have to be notified there is now a $35 permit. But for those people that have existing alarms, I don't think that that is fair.
The renewal would be 25-year rather than the 35, and the cost is to try to defray some of the administrative.
I understand what it is, but it's still, that's just a brand new tax on somebody, and I don't think that that's appropriate.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on that a little bit, just to make sure that I understand, but that fee is only for those alarms that are monitored, right? So if you don't have a monitoring, or is it for every alarm?
It's for all the alarms.
All the alarms. Yeah, I tend to agree with Bill. I mean, I'm struggling a little bit with, I mean, so let me just tease it out a little further. So if we, okay, so somebody has an alarm, they have an alarm right now. There are, let's see. So they have an alarm, they don't have it monitored, or they did for the first year, because that's how most of those programs work. You do it for a year because you get a discounted fee, and then they spring you with a real cost, and then people stop, have the monitoring. In many cases, you would be assessed a fee, $35, to have that alarm, regardless of whether or not there were any first, second, or third false alarms during that first year. So there's that 35 right from the get, and then if you had that third false alarm, that's right. So for residential, it'd start with the third one for the 110. Is that right?
For the residential and commercial, they're the same. They both start on the second.
Yeah. So the 110 for the third. Yeah. So then I understand the cost of the multiple false alarms and how that factors into the cost associated with the business, but how does the initial 35 factor in if that person never has any false alarms? That they manage their alarms correctly and they never have any problems, but they're still paying a $35 processing or a fee for having the alarm?
For the first one, and then down to 25, but that cost the price of that allows us to get them into the system. So if they have an opportunity to do enhanced call verification, or they want to give us context to call, so somebody can come out and turn it off before they do get that false alarm, it helps the user in that sense.
Can you explain that a little more? So again, so somebody's not hooked up to the system, they paid the $35. Explain to me what is that? What does that do?
So, for example, if it's an audible alarm, and they've turned in to us an application that says, if this goes off, please contact this person, or as a secondary, please contact this person, then when we hear that, and we can call off the officer rather than getting out there and having to assess them a fine.
The alarm permit fee, what are other jurisdictions doing in that regard? I'm looking at the Sac County website, for example, and theirs is $40, but it's for 3 years. Did you do other analysis of what other jurisdictions are assessing as part of the permit fee process?
Yes, we did a benchmark survey of 10 local jurisdictions, and that was in keeping with what the other jurisdictions were also doing.
I mean, but how so? I mean, I understand that it was within the range, but I mean, what did that distribution look like?
Offhand, I don't recall. I don't have the numbers with me. I believe it was pretty well right in the center of the other jurisdictions. Thank you.
And operationally, is there, I mean, the permits themselves do we require the permit already under our existing ordinance?
We do, but we don't. They basically come in, fill it out. We don't charge them anything, and it goes in a file. And we never know if they continue having the alarm, if they don't, if there's a situation that goes on. We don't have that information to contact someone or, follow up with their account or with their location in the way that we would if we had them in our system.
I mean, I wonder if because I think both of my colleagues have, and Mr. Johannes hasn't weighed in yet, but I think the concern about sort of the surprise fee is an important one to deal with. We do need the updated information, but we could get that. We could still require an annual permit, even if you didn't have to pay, even if you were grandfathered in the fee schedule in some way. And to me, I mean, the point of this ordinance is that we will save money or save resources by not deploying officers where they are not needed, so that we can be substantially more efficient. And it seems odd that we would be charging people so that we can save money. I mean, the saving the money should be a value in and of itself, and the charge ought to be related to the direct cost. But the transition period for folks who already have an alarm, I think is a good point to deal with. So I'd be more. I mean, just listening, I'd be more comfortable with the notion of either a substantially reduced or no fee for the existing alarms, but a requirement that they get annual, the same requirement that would apply to them, that even if it doesn't cost anything, you still have to get an annual permit so that we have all the information on file that you've described we need to provide effective service.
Right. Can I piggyback
Well,
on that?
normally what happens, I think, in these cases is alarm company X comes to the door, they knock on the door, and they say, we want to put in an alarm. They put in the alarm, they fill out the first permit, and then they send that in. And then the people that have the alarm usually have a couple different people that can be contacted if the alarm goes off. So it will say that somebody breaks in. What happens is the alarm goes off, and the alarm company will contact the police department, but they will also contact the people that you have designated on your little note or whatever it is, and they'll have a special password that they have to use through that process. Then if the people that have been contacted, if they deem that it is not necessary, then the alarm company calls the police department and stops them from going to that location. So, I mean, I think that, if there's some way that we can figure this out for the existing, it is going to be an inconvenience, even if we have to do a permitting process every year, because the people that have alarms are not used to it at all. They don't know unless there's an alarm permit sent sent to them, or unless there's an alarm permit that goes in a utility bill or whatever it may be. They don't know to fill that out and to send that in.
Well, one of the things
we could. I mean, part of the. I think you both described the very well the situation that occurs in the home. And that's how it starts with an alarm company. But if you disconnect that service, what we have on file from that original permit is no longer accurate. And so, there's no verified response occurring. And I know in several cities in the state that don't have alarm fees at all, but they do require a verified response, that they've also reduced their false alarm rates. But we don't require that either. And so if you have your alarm company fill out the permit when you get it, and then you end up disconnecting it because you get a balloon payment on it, then you have a false sense of security, because we're going to be contacting the wrong people if we get a notification at all, because we don't have any of the correct information on file. So for the alarm system to be effective, we need to have up-to-date information about who to check with, who to contact, that sort of thing. And so it is in the homeowner's interest to have a permit with us if we're not charging them for it.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is it's going to be very cumbersome on a year-by-year basis to get that permit. Because, the folks out there, they're not used to it. They've had an alarm for 10 years, and all they do is push a bunch of buttons when they leave and push a bunch of buttons when they get home, and they're happy. And now they're going to have this piece of paper that they're going to have to fill out. And it's fine to do that, provided we find a easy way to get this permit to the homeowner that has an alarm. And I don't know what that is, but I'm sure that with all the alarm companies that are walking through the neighborhoods, there should be some database, or there should be something that we can tell who is alarmed and who's not alarmed, and send them a permit so that they can send it back into you and the police department.
Yes, actually, we were looking at doing an outside vendor to administer the program. And one of the things that they do as their service is they partner with the alarm companies, and the alarm companies have to provide a list of their current customers, all the information on their account, any updates, monthly updates if someone, turns off their system or new customers come in. They have to give us the updates, and the outside vendor actually compiles a database. So when we would do a mass mailing, put it in the local media, website, so forth, that's great for a general distribution. But what's nice is that alarm company has the names of every single alarm customer, so we can send it directly to the people that have alarms and send it to people who get new alarms. And their database actually interfaces with our CAD system, with our dispatch system.
Yeah, the more I think about what we're doing in this conversation, and I appreciate what the intended goal is, I'm becoming less and less comfortable. I just can't fathom the need to go and now require that there be if I as a homeowner want an alarm for whatever reason, and I discontinue the service, and I want to just have that alarm, I just don't know why we want to intrude on that and require a permit beyond what I've already determined I need. And if at some point I abuse that privilege by having multiple false alarms, I can understand our role at that point, saying, look, now you're a cost to our public safety resources, and I can track that part. But I just struggle with this notion that we need to now require you to have a permit for something that is no problem for you or anybody else. It works perfectly fine. You set your alarm, the alarm has never gone off, you've never had an issue, your neighbors have never called, you've never had to call the police have never been called out, yet you're required to have a permit for what is otherwise a personal decision about home safety. I'm just not there. I just don't know how I get there tonight. But I do understand your proposal to, if it's an ongoing thing, I get our cost associated with that.
I don't know. If the purpose of the alarm is to engage people other than you in solving your problem, particularly our public taxpayer-funded police department, it feels like it is more. There is a partnership here. Unless you sign an agreement at the beginning, I have no expectation that anyone is going to respond when the alarm goes off. That there should be some it is a two-way. Your decision to install an alarm is creating an obligation upon us to respond to a specific thing that we can't independent. If I call 911, the 911 dispatcher can say, where are you, what's going on. The number of sort of false 911 calls to which we respond is much lower. The number of false 911 calls we get is not trivial, but the ones that we actually respond to is lower because there's an interaction with a person on the phone. With an alarm, it's just something that's getting to us, and we can't, without this information, or without a strong relationship with the alarm company, we can't verify it, and it's what leads to these charges. It seems legitimate to me that there's some. I mean, I don't know that you need to, over time, the notion of needing some, big form or something, it doesn't make sense to me. You should be able to go online and quickly type in, here's the name and phone number of the 3 people to contact and that are authorized to be in the house, period, done. It takes 2 minutes to do. But an expectation that we're going to respond should provide some expectation that you're going to tell us, who do we respond to?
Well, I don't have any problem with the false alarm, $110, $165, and so forth. I have no problem with that. I think that is totally appropriate, and I think that if that many false alarms happen, well, then there certainly is a problem that needs to be addressed. I guess the only thing that I really object to is the $35 fee for the permit itself. If you want to do a permit, okay. I mean, I can do that so that they can, so that people can put a database together that says these are the homes that have alarms. In some respects, that's a little spooky too. But I mean, at the same time, I think that's one of the reasons people get that alarm is so they can put a stick in the ground outside that says whatever alarm company it is, and it has a tendency to keep people, hopefully keep people away from breaking into that house. But at the same time, I really hate to identify and have on some kind of record everybody that has an alarm. But anyway, but I mean, for commercial, I think it's totally appropriate. I really don't have any problem. But anyway, those are my thoughts. If I could do away with the $35 fee, I'd feel a little bit better.
Mr. Johannesson?
Yeah, I think the existing, we'd have to make it simple for people that have these systems. I wouldn't even call it a permit, I'd just call it a registration. You're registering your alarm, and with the obligation, you're going to provide some names of people to contact so the police don't come out and let people know what happens if the police comes out, particularly in a farce. The only time you're going to get a false alarm fee is if the police come out. So, and just kind of roll into more people registering and have a facility on the city's website where they can do that just by, putting in their address and the contact saying, no forms to file and not have a fee associated with it, but just because really the point is just to have names on file to contact so the police don't go out and waste resources. So, I don't think it's good at this point to charge people for that. We should be able to do it at little or no cost with, advertising in the utility bills and using existing alarm companies to contact these people. But in terms of the alarm system, I mean, I'm going through just the definition of the system. It's the intent is to summon law enforcement because you could potentially have someone who just wants to create noise to scare intruders off, and the alarm could be blaring. I mean, if the police come, then it's not going to be a false alarm because they never summoned the police. I'm not sure about this definition. It seems that the intent here would create an issue for a hearing officer on whether or not it was intended. I didn't want the cops to come out. I just wanted to make noise, that type of thing. So I think it's a little loose, but I think we have to. I think, like my colleagues have said, there's a lot of people that have systems in place. People move. The systems still work. They still make noise, and I think that's more the issue than police come over. That's a good attribute of that. But I would favor more no annual fee, some type of registration, and along with education, that if you don't register and the police can't contact anybody and they do come out, then you're going to start looking at false alarms. And when they do get a false alarm fee, education on what the next false alarm fee is going to cost. And just to kind of roll into that way, and over time, people are going to be educated.
One other thing I would say, and that's a real benefit as far as the police department is concerned. I know that there are a number of people that have alarms, and that alarm has gone off. The police department has responded. They've responded in a very expeditious manner, and they are. I hear out on the street, they're so appreciative of that. Something may have happened and it has been a false alarm, but at the same time, they are still very, very happy with the response that the police department has gone through and everything. I just hear that from a number of different people. So I just wanted to let you know that you deserve a pat on the back, at least for that.
I had concerns about the charging existing alarm
Yeah, and if you want
owners
to charge
the
new
fee.
ones, that's fine.
I think charging the new ones is entirely. We charge everybody in the city that has a water heater. We have a database of their water heaters. We charge them a fee for the to verify and inspect the proper installation of their water heaters. This is not an unprecedented notion, and the water heaters have less of a connection to others than alarms do. Because even just the making noise, in the absence of it summoning the police, that's creating a public nuisance. And we don't, when car alarms first came out, they were just going off constantly. We got more complaints about that than we did about actual car thefts. Even the noise it's causing an effect on other people in the community that needs to be dealt with. So to me, I think long term, having some modest registration fee or something is appropriate. I think the concerns that have been raised about not hitting people who already have them totally makes sense, and I'm not sure whether the dollar figure is the right one or not. But I think having some modest mechanism, and I understand, it sounds like you may have priced it in part because of what you need to do in order to engage this private contractor, and maybe that's just not the right. Maybe that's a gold standard of service that we don't need. We haven't gone really into any detail about that, but so I wouldn't wipe off the option of a fee. Period. I just think the existing users should be immune from it, and we should be looking at whether a $25 renewal fee is really the right number or not. I don't know, but it should be based on what we essentially need to do, and whether or not we really have to contract with a private company for anything. So this is we have this on for first reading. It doesn't.
Just one piece of information. We heard your direction, and we'll go back and actually and look at the fee. Just to clarify, though, the fee it's an application and permit fee for processing that and entering it into the database. Somebody has to do that work. And so under the proposal we'll be bringing to you on our third appearance before you, you're going to see we're going to ask for approval for a contract with a vendor, and there's a cost there. And so what we're going to have to do is go back and see that if we don't generate that fee, have that fee to cover that cost of setting up the database and entering the information into the database, then is it fall back to us to do that? Is it possible that maybe on the one-time basis, the first-time basis, that's the majority of the costs, and the updates, then the annual updates, if there's new information, maybe we then could handle that without a fee. But there's certainly going to be an initial cost to enter any permit, new or existing, into that database and get it set up, and there's going to be a charge one way or the other for that. So we'll research that, and when we come back to you, we'll have that information for you. So,
Johannesson?
Yeah, I think to the extent you can automate that, you're not going to have people keying in that information. You could have, for example, a reduction of people that want to register online. Some ways that people can reduce the cost.
Yeah, under our proposal, it wouldn't be a city function. It would be contracted out, and the company that there's been an RFP let, there's been a process to evaluate those RFPs. There's going to be a recommendation coming back to you, and you know, the company is state-of-the-art, cutting edge, and, you know, so.
So they may have the ability to register online then? Oh, they do?
Yeah,
Okay.
they have an entire portal that. The biggest benefit is once they've registered, if we just had a database, it really doesn't do a lot for when when the officers are in the field and for dispatch, because who is going to access that? How are they going to access that? The vendor actually has a software that links that database to dispatch directly, so they can click a button. They have all that account information, name, contact numbers, officer safety issues, and they can relay that to the officers rather than having just an in-house database that dispatch can't see, the officers can't see.
I mean, if enough revenue can be generated through new permits, I think that the folks out there would be very appreciative of that, because the existing ones, that's where, quite frankly, that's where the vast majority of these $35, whatever it was going to be, that's where the vast majority of that money would come from. But, you know, the people out there seem to be happy with their alarm system. They're happy with the process. And I can certainly understand that if there are false alarms, that they would be charged, and we could put an ordinance in place that takes care of that. But for the existing people that have alarms, personally, I don't think that they should have a $25, $35 fee, whatever it is, on a yearly basis attached to them. They really don't need to be in the system, or at least they don't feel that way. They think that, you know, they've already done whatever they need to do by putting up the alarm, and it gives them their comfort level is raised from a safety perspective. But so
I felt that way about the levy system.
yeah,
So
no, it changed.
Sometimes it changes.
So anyway, you know, that's what I think that the people out there would say.
So, Mr. City Manager, I mean, this is not a workshop. This is on for first reading, and it's not clear to me that we have enough clarity here to be able to adopt something on first reading that would come back with only ministerial changes for second reading. I mean, if you feel like
No, I think we could come back with additional information. And then I also wanted to mention in the memo to the council that on for the second false alarm, we wanted to make the recommendation rather than a zero cost, that there would be the $55 charge for the second rather than zero. So as we come back next month, we would have that as well.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, you need to take another look at what exact services and program and stuff we need, and figure out how to move the funding sources around based on the conversations that's occurred here before
I think
we
we've got
could
good
approve
feedback
it,
today.
before we could adopt a first reading item.
Okay.
So if there's no objection, then we would continue this to a future meeting.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Villegas?
Can I just ask, because I thought I heard a couple different things. So on page, whatever is this page, not numbered, on the third page of the staff report, the proposed penalty provisions doesn't have a penalty under the second false alarm.
No, it doesn't. We provided a memo to you that a revised recommendation would be that for the second false alarm, there would be a penalty of $55.
I didn't see that. Is that today's packet, or?
I didn't see it. Is that in today's packet?
Yeah,
Because that's
it's-
not something that I would support.
Right. So
I
that
think that
kept throwing me off.
the third one should be the when it starts.
Okay, so the first and second would have no cost.
Right.
Okay. We had a debate at the staff level in terms of some of the direction at our last meeting when we talked about this, that a penalty may want to start on the second false alarm.
Yeah, I personally, I think at some point we're going to have to grapple with this for real, and to say nobody has to register. You get without register. You don't have to tell us who to call. You don't have to your alarm connected, and you get two police responses. That is, two other areas of the city that are not getting police coverage while we are sending an officer to your house. So it's not for free. We're not sending a public information officer to make folks feel good about police protection. We're sending an actual officer that needs to be doing something else. We have to deal with that issue in one way or the other. And so I think we can't completely pull the rug out from under the permit notion that the department's proposing, and simultaneously say you get to the third false alarm when a majority of the false alarms are first and second. I think we got to pick one or the other in some way. So this is why I think we've got a bunch of these issues to deal with as we go forward. And still some differences in I don't think there's differences of final opinion, but it's just differences in degree on the council.
Yeah, I agree. Bring back the first reading for September 19th.
So okay, so we'll continue this to a future date. Item 6 is presentation on program status of Early Learning Services Division and consideration of classification description and benefit schedule and salary for the lead preschool teacher, family support specialist.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I wanted to introduce our Director of Early Learning Services, Justine Jimenez, who's going to give a brief presentation on some of the things that we've been doing in the Early Learning Services Division. The action item before you tonight is approval of the job description for the lead preschool teacher and / family support specialist. And this is a fairly unique position that is designed to be a teacher in the learning ladder, but also to serve as a family support specialist, which is one of the requirements of the new child signature program, which Justine will tell you some more about. This particular position, I wanted to point out, is funded through learning ladder fees that are collected and also through the child signature program, of which we are one partner. So it is a fully funded position through fees and the combination of grant revenue. So, and with that, I'd like you to introduce to our superstar Director of Early Learning Services, Justine Jimenez.
Hi, thank you, Carol. So I'm going to wait till the presentation gets put up on the board here, and then. Oh, I apologize. I'm not seeing it. There we go. Okay. Hi. I'm really excited to be here and tell you a little bit about some of the changes and some of the ways that we've grown through early learning services for the past 3 years. This is our 8th year. Basically running the Upper West Sac program, and there have been some changes, as Carol mentioned. So we're going to take a look at who we are. We are a division of the City Manager's Office, and we oversee Upper West Sac, as well as the 2 child care and preschool centers, Learning Ladder and Discovery. Where'd that go? Hang on one moment. We're having some technical difficulties. Okay. We'll go back to... I don't know if you can still see the staffing up there, but we do have myself as the director. We have a program coordinator, 2 site supervisors, one at Discovery, one at Learning Ladder, 8 teachers, and an administrative assistant at this time. We actually will be growing with some more teachers at Learning Ladder as we expand there too. I did want to point out too that we're very proud 8 of our staff members reside in West Sacramento, including myself, the director, and we really try to pull from our community when we hire. So we've been really lucky to find some really quality teachers here in West Sacramento. One of our teachers actually walks to the center, which is great. And a lot of them are lifetime residents of West Sacramento and really know the area very well. So our child signature program, this is what was formerly known as Power of Preschool. Before that, it was known as Universal Preschool. The funding stream that we get through First 5 California, they keep changing the name, but we keep doing what we do, and I think we're doing it very well. We oversee quality standards for participating West Sacramento child care and preschool programs. We work with both public and private centers, and we help fund quality improvement in these centers. So it's not just us. We work with a variety of other sources. We work with other early education experts. We work with other community-based organizations, and with our partners, Washington Unified, YCOE, et cetera, to improve the school readiness outcomes, teacher efficacy and retention, and parent support and involvement. And about 500 children this year will be served through this program. 60-plus teachers will be served. The majority of the children that we serve are in our state preschool classrooms and our Head Start classrooms that are here in the city of West Sac. And one of the major things in terms of our partnership with Washington Unified and with YCOE has been this ability to raise the quality of our public preschool programs, because this is where the children who are usually the highest need reside. So, these three things that you see, the cornerstones of Up for West Sac: early social emotional growth and skill building, teacher education and mentoring, and family support and involvement, are based on years of research looking at preschool and what makes a high quality preschool experience. And these are the things that are the key features of high quality preschools. So these are the things that we work to foster. Obviously, we're also doing all the things that the traditional preschool goals would be. We're trying to get our kids ready for kindergarten. But these things are really what you see that make preschools that are quality stand out from other preschools. You can see some of the community partners that we work with there. We're really lucky to have such fantastic resources in Yolo County, and several Washington Unified obviously being our school district, but Communicare health centers who run a fantastic program here for parents who are dealing with getting out of drug addiction, so they're in recovery and they're getting parenting skills. We work with Yolo Family Service Agency for mental health resource, and Yolo County Children's Alliance, Yolo Resource and Referral, et cetera. These are just for our public programs. You can see a little bit of information about the majority of the children we serve. Head Start is obviously operated by YCOE. We have 80 preschool aged and 18 infant toddler aged children being served by Head Start in West Sacramento. Also, Head Start, as is usual everywhere in the country, the highest need population is their goal to serve, and they provide full day child care whenever possible, which is really needed by families who are trying to work and support themselves. Also, Washington Unified serves 256 preschool aged children. We have a seamless kindergarten transition there with obviously the campuses providing preschool and then having the children who are able to attend preschool often on the same campus, but regardless they really have curriculum which dovetails nicely with what they're going to experience in kindergarten, and mostly half-day preschool is offered there. Just in terms of a few of the changes that we've seen through First Five, the funding stream that came to us, as I mentioned before, it's now called Child Signature Program. It's no longer called I wonder what's going on with that. It's called the Child Signature Program, and it is no longer considered Power of Preschool, although they really do consider it an enhanced Power of Preschool. I'm just finding my place on my... Okay. Nope, that's not it either. Okay, thank you. We now can only work with providers, that's schools, any centers, where an elementary school has an API of 3 or below. We can continue to work with, if the provider worked with us in the past, they can be grandfathered in with an API of 5 or below. But that does mean, because our school district has improved, there are some areas of town where centers would not be eligible. It is a block grant funding, not a per child, and also family child care homes who provide preschool are no longer eligible to receive preschool enhancement funding. So there have been some changes. That last piece there, this is what we're coming to you about tonight. There is a requirement to provide a family support specialist and an early education expert to support families and teachers. We already essentially had an early education expert piece with the staffing that we already have, but the family support specialist is something that is required that we're looking to fund. And with this funding, again, as Carol mentioned previously, half of the funding would come from this Child Signature Program funding, which is we're in contract with First Five California at this time to provide that, and then part of it would come through Learning Ladder for the lead preschool teacher part. Here you can see our funding partners, and I wanted to mention the City of West Sacramento does contribute $100,000 each year, although we are now with the administrative allowance that is now given to us by First Five California. That is now cost neutral because we're able to get that back for administrative overhead. So although the city contributes $100,000, they can get $100,000 back in administrative costs from the First Five funding. Additionally, there is the YCOE and Washington Unified. The amount of money that they put in to fund preschool is makes up a significant portion of our local match. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our city-run programs.
Christine, could you give me a sense of the
Absolutely.
how the roadmap for the presentation? How much more presentation is there?
Oh, I have like 3 more slides.
Okay.
Yeah. So just some things that are new about Discovery and Learning Ladder. Learning Ladder is new itself, so just there's some information for you there, and I don't have to go through each piece. But basically, we're very excited because Discovery Preschool now is running 2 sessions per day. We were able to build revenue. We're on our 2nd year of beginning to build revenue for reserves. So we're no longer losing money on that program. We're actually able to make some. Additionally, Learning Ladder, which offers full day and flexibility for working families, has 20 of 48 slots which are subsidized, and both programs have really high levels of parent satisfaction. A little bit of information about how we measure outcomes. We've seen really tremendous growth in our children. We use a variety of different tools to assess them yearly, twice a year. And with this new funding piece, we're also contracting with somebody who will specifically look at evaluating those 3 areas that I mentioned before. And we have a lot of outcomes that we're anticipating being able to see, and this is going to be a really great new piece to this program. I know all of you are really aware we've had steep cuts to education in our state. That has happened for early education. We've lost 64 state preschool and 20 Head Start preschool spaces in this community. We have some challenges ahead of us for sure. But some of the things that we're doing to try to face those challenges is to work with a collaborative group of all of our partners to look into ways of solving challenges, finding other ways to come up with, ways to look at budget shortfalls, et cetera, and partnership with all of the people who are taking, sort of the organizations that are taking part in this new Family Resource Center funding through First Five YOLO, which we will not be actually receiving any of that, but many of our partners are, so we'll be able to really look at increased support for our families in this community. Thank you, that's all.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Villegas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did take an opportunity to go across the street to see the work that the staff is doing with the the Learning Ladder program at the community center, and it is really it's an amazing program that we have in operation now. And I know that these are difficult times, and I know that this program has been around for a bit, but I think we've come full circle now where we actually are able to show that much of what we're doing is beginning to pay for itself literally, and during these difficult times where so many cuts are being absorbed on so many levels, we know these kinds of programs need to absorb their fair share of cuts, but we've now been able to get to a point where we've been successful in receiving grant funding and other sources of funding that have supported the operation, and as Justine indicated earlier, it's now at a point where we have been successful enough to continue to get sufficient state grant and First Five funding to support our efforts. So we're very good position here, and so that's what I would add to the tail end of that presentation.
Mr. Kristoff.
Just a quick question, Justine. When you talk about budget impacts, and it says First Five California, First Five YOLO, and the City of West Sacramento, are you referring to the Measure K funds, or are there
Yes.
other funds?
No, that would be just the Measure K funds.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No further questions or discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Villegas?
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we approve the classification description as indicated in the staff report and appropriate the fundings as indicated in the staff report through June 30, 2013.
All right, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Villegas and seconded by Mr. Johannesson. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Council calendar, Ms. Richardson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add one thing about the Learning Ladder, which we're so proud of, is that we always had a goal to have this program be ethnically and economically diverse. And I think if you take a walk over to the Learning Ladder and see that, you really get a sense that we accomplished that goal. So we're really proud of that particular aspect of the program. But as for the calendar, I just wanted to point out that this is our last meeting of the month, and in September, our video contest is going to, the deadline for that is going to be ending on September 6th. That's for our 25th anniversary video contest, and our staff is out promoting that pretty heavily right now. And that'll be followed up in October with we're resurging the photo contest this year for the 25th anniversary also. And then on the 20th of September, the SACOG meeting will be hosted here in West Sacramento, and I understand there's going to be a tour that's going to be following after that. And that's all. Thank you.
We made a determination about the September 12th council meeting.
That's next item.
So what are you looking at? Or
Well, Mr. Mayor and Council, due to the holiday beginning of next month, there was a determination to move council meetings to September 12th and the 19th. We've looked at the future agenda items and would recommend canceling the September 12th meeting and just having the September 19th meeting. We think we can accommodate that. It's our understanding the mayor is also going to be going to Denver as part of the chamber study mission as the vice chair for the trip. That would enable the mayor to be accommodated as well. So we think we could handle the single meeting in September on the 19th.
Okay. All right. Without objection, then. No. I guess we're on the city manager report. Is that?
We are.
All right. Anything else?
Councilman Ledesma asked me to provide a brief update on the YOLO HCP, the Habitat Conservation Program. There were some staffing issues. The board has hired a consultant, Heidi Schutten, to step in and continue the day-to-day operation of the HCP program. Lots of interest in keeping the project on schedule or at least back on schedule. Major issue with Fish and Game and Fish and Wildlife. Mr. Ledesma asked me to pass on that the board did pursue additional funding, state funding, to continue the program. But there are some staffing issues. In the short term, they're going to fill it with a consultant.
All right. Any questions on the city manager's reports? City attorney report?
Nothing to report.
Staff director and members of the council? Mr. Johannesson?
Yeah, just one quickly, Marty. I understand that either this 2x2 or coming up, there's going to be a request to, at the supervisory level, look at the emergency preparedness plan for the county. Just a heads up that when they start looking at the county, I'd like to see maybe if we can get an update on our emergency preparedness, including, community outreach, that type of thing.
All right, and we didn't do this earlier, but just also to acknowledge the police department and all the city departments that were involved in the National Night Out Against Crime, which was another big success last week, and particularly to acknowledge all the neighborhood watch captains, block leaders, and all the residents that came out. I attended a whole bunch of them. I know the members of the council did as well, and the SWAT team and the fire trucks and McGruff the crime dog and the recycling people. The whole it was a great opportunity both for residents to join together, meet each other, and make it clear to folks that might have ill intentions that people look out for each other in our neighborhoods in West Sac, but also a lot of folks in the community who were really excited to see all the various city, be able to put a face to the city services that they rely upon all the time, and our team, the team of firefighters and police officers and recycling workers and city manager's office, the whole team really did a great job as ambassadors for the city that night. So thanks and congratulations.
Just to follow up to that, one of the questions that repeatedly came up was at many of the community groups was interest in understanding a little more about the parks, the citywide parks master plan. And I know we had previously had it scheduled to begin ramping up again in the summer, I think. So I'm just wondering if at some point in the newsletter we can get an update on where that is in the process. I know a lot of folks are very interested in participating in some of the public outreach we're going to be doing as part of that. So it doesn't have to happen right away, but we can get an update on where that is and get back to folks. Great, thank you.
All right. See and we have no future agenda item requests. So is there?
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Christoph moved and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Villegas has seconded that the meeting be adjourned. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
Mr. Mayor.